Welcome to the Shifted podcast and video series. Each week, we talk to classroom teachers about how their teaching and learning has shifted since the onset of the global pandemic. We delve into classroom practices, daily routines, structures and schedules, digital tips, tools, and tricks that you can use in your classroom right away. Hi, and welcome to the Shifted podcast and video series. My name is John Hamlin with the Greater Victoria School District here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, the capital of our province, and home to the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation, upon whose land we live, we learn, and we do our work. And today, we podcast. This is episode 6 of the series, and we're back at Oak Bay High School again talking to social studies teacher Scott Alexander. What? Oak Bay School again? Yep, we're back at Oak Bay, and someone asked me this week, are you only featuring teachers from Oak Bay High School? And truth is, when we first started talking about the initial planning stages of this series, I chatted with Mel Pass, who's the vice principal of Oak Bay High. And when she found out what we were thinking of doing, she said, I've got this group of folks you have to connect with. And she sent me this long list of very talented, incredibly hardworking teachers who have done tons of innovative work in the remote learning field. So those key folks have been the nexus. They've been the catalyst to get this series up off the ground. In the weeks to come, though, we'll be switching things up and moving to looking at examples from other schools, connecting with teachers from across the Greater Victoria School District. So answer, no, it's not just Oak Bay teachers, but it's just Oak Bay teachers as we get this series up and running. On this episode, Scott will be talking to us about his classroom practice and a number of the digital tools he's used to maintain student engagement during the remote learning period. Now, Scott has had a number of these tools as key integral parts of his practice pre-pandemic, and they've only become more integrated and integral to his work during the pandemic period. Scott's also taught career programs and a number of other key areas, but today we're going to focus more on the social studies domain. I really hope you enjoy episode 6. If you like what you hear, if you have any comments, thoughts, queries, or if you'd like to participate in a future episode, we're definitely looking for more folks to get involved. You can either send me an email through our school district email system. You can find us on social media. We're on Twitter at ShiftedBC. And of course, you can go to our Anchor FM podcast site. That's anchor.fm/shifted. And you can leave us a voice message that we could include in a future episode. So there's just a few ways that you can reach out to us. But in the meantime, let's hear what Scott has to share with us this week. I hope you enjoy episode 6. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Take care. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're pleased to have Scott Alexander from Oak Bay High School joining us this afternoon. And we'd like to acknowledge that this Zoom meeting is coming to you live from the lands of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Esquimalt and Songhees Nation. Scott, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Maybe
you can tell us a little bit about what your role is at Oak Bay High and what your teaching load's been like this semester or this year.
It's been different. So at Oak Bay, I teach in social studies. I teach history, and I'm the department head for history and for social studies. And I also do the work experience, and I also do the scholarship prep. So I've got a mixed bag of everything. So I've got kids that I was really used to being remote with because a lot of emails and a weekly update I do for scholarship class, which is a huge amount of, it's a huge role, and it's really important to get that info out. So that didn't switch at all. And then, of course, we adapted for remote learning pretty darn quick. So, but I thought we were really well ready for it. So,
what digital platforms were you using pre-pandemic period?
So solely Google Classroom delivery with kids, and our departments really worked well at that. And I had a teaching partner, Keith Butler, who just retired. Well done, Keith. And Keith, we would kind of push each other to get better at the skill set over the last 5 years. So we made a commitment to doing as paperless as we could about 4 or 5 years ago in our classrooms. So again, compared to my wife who's teaching grade 2, this was a completely different preparation for us, right? So again, Classroom's been really key, and then again, we use all the G Suite tools within there, and we didn't deviate a whole lot from that. I would say we use Hyperdocs too, but we've created our own Hyperdocs as we've gone through. So I don't use that specific platform. So I'm not really using any third-party other platforms besides what we have available to us, which I think is really key for our departments.
So for anyone that might be watching and who's unfamiliar with what a Hyperdoc is or what it looks like, do you have one you could share by any chance?
I do actually, and I will pull it up right now. And so what I did is, what I found, I think a lot of people found this, who's watching this, found that we got so many freebies given at us so fast that you could have spent a week just looking at things and never actually committing to anything in your classroom. And I think that's one of the key things was that you have to decide whether for the fall is we have to decide what are the 2 or 3 key things you want to do with your remote learning and let go of the other stuff, because you can't do everything. It just won't be successful for you, and you cannot consume all that free media, because we also know there's going to be some paywalls coming up too, right? So yes, I'm going to open one right now. And I just made it in a Google Doc, so I didn't actually make it in a slide because I like doing it in a Google Doc for kids. Are you sharing this? Am I sharing this?
Yeah, you can share screens now with using your button there.
Okay, and right, perfect. So my 9-year-old Mac is still chugging along my downstairs room here, so it's perfect. So you can see that now, right, John?
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
Great. So what I did on this one was I tried to take stuff from Socials 11 and the new curriculum and say, look, when we're at home, we're obviously eating a lot more, spending a lot more time cooking food, walking the neighborhoods, and kind of looking at those systems of like our houses, right? So I kind of revamped a bunch of things. This one came from Canadian Geographic. I can't recommend it enough. They've got a new online digital classroom material. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So what I did here again is I downloaded it from their site and pulled off the information I wanted, and then adapted it into the pictures, right? And the reading materials I wanted. So again, what I'll do on here is like for this one, for example, the Gigapixel will load up here in a link. And the Gigapixel is this really wicked website that is a Gigapixel is a mega file that you can zoom in on. And so kids were doing some exploring about technofossils and the idea of waste systems. And so then what I linked on this one was saying, okay, now you've seen this, how much of this stuff do you recognize? Because really, if you go to Costco, like we all do, lots of us do, you're seeing a lot of the same material. There's a dollar store bag. And so anyway, you can zoom in on this one, and then you're looking for these different links. And if you don't know what it is, then you go back to the main site here and you look for a hint.
I see a few dollar store bags in there.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. And you get this little thing here. And so it's an embedded link into a video that's current, right? And so this was a really cool site. I'm going to close that down. We don't need to watch that right now. And so so essentially what a Hyperdoc is that you're taking your digital material and kind of leaping off. But you want to embed the link so it looks good. And so it reads well. And then so that I just stop. What I really focused on too for the social studies is stop and reflect, right? So I said to my kids, of course it's I want you to engage. Learning happens outside the classroom. Of course it does. And you need to look on your depth and detail, right? And so it's like don't look for these secret little questions in here. It's really engaging the process. So I just went through that. So there's part 1. And then I really like doing these simple boxes, and it's very simple to add. All you're doing right here is you're going to go insert a table, and you insert a 1 by 1. And so it just makes a visual space, and I'll just undo that. It makes a visual space that expands as kids write into it, so they're not feeling overwhelmed about where is the right place to write. And then we just went through the other ones, and then at the end here, I linked it into you can see right here, I'll highlight it. It just says copy your 5 slides into a shared link into a slideshow. And what the kids did, I'm just open the link up. And again, it's all on the SD61 Learn site, so it's all kind of behind the closed appropriate doors.
Yeah.
And kids added 1 slide here around their walk in the neighborhood. So they had to take pictures of what they saw, what they thought was kind of connected to this Hyperdoc. So the Hyperdoc became more real. They took their information, easily linked in. It was a fun assignment. And then and I'll talk about that after, but how I did a weekly Zoom call with them, and we reviewed these. We talked about it. We had something to talk about, which is really great.
What an interesting way to take a global concept and apply it locally and make those connections from to a small scale.
Well, even the first one I did was on taking Canadian Geographic 2 and it was a history of pandemics. And then I just linked in a video, and then they saw Bonnie Henry from like 5 years ago. predicting this whole thing.
Wow.
And then we did another one on, if I go back into this one right here. And again, I use all my information in the classroom itself. Sorry, and then Kate Baker probably brought up a really good idea too, how she used the material and she pinned it to the top so kids always know. And I love that. So I did another one too on a final assignment on the instructions here, a thing called Control F. And I would super recommend this website called Civics Canada, and they do the student vote, and they've been on this amazing stuff on around what it is for digital learning and how to find out if things are authentic. So fake news, real news, but they really use the correct words of disinformation and fake news information. So again, I would link in a video like this. I copy pasted in, and I watched Mike's video. I just took a little screenshot of that, or you just embed it. And then this was like my final exam, so to speak. And again, there's no necessarily wrong answers. It's about the depth and detail kids provided. So I did one of these a week.
So, and just for those people that may have not tried this kind of thing before, you make the original copy, and then you're assigning this document through your classroom, which then replicates an individual copy for each student, correct?
Absolutely. Totally true. Yeah. And that's the key thing too. And one little tip for Google Classroom is that you need to select that first before you launch the assignment. Because once you go back, it will not make a copy for every student afterwards. You have to kind of undo the whole process and start again. I learned that the hard way, like we all do.
The pro tip there.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I did that I felt kids really engaged with. And again, what I decided right away, because the thing I missed most was conversation with kids. You can deliver a bazillion bits of content, but you got to have the learning time. So I love that Google added into, again, I'm sure someone will talk about this, John, but on the very top here on my screen, the Meet link automatically came in. That was really key. And so I kept the same link if I didn't recognize a kid because it came up with their name. Of course, they weren't in. I prefer this over Zoom. And it selected everything in here. What I really like about the Google Meet link too is there's a little icon in the top right corner, so you can always see yourself. And another great tip would be just Google Meet waffle or screen extension, and it makes it look just like Zoom. And you add it to your Chrome browser, so I can see every kid on little boxes on my screen. And I just kept the same, like Monday at 11 o'clock for History 12, and we would have a conversation. I do a quick whip around with the group, like, kind of pits and peaks or, goods and bads of the week, just to feel connected and get used to them talking on the Zoom or on the camera, sorry. And then we would get into our screen share and we just talk about some ideas. And I'd explain my assignment, take any questions. We usually do about 45, 50 minutes.
What would you say your engagement rate's been like over the last couple of months? Has it changed from March till now?
Well, yeah, it is very different, right? So with History 12, like with the older kids, it was great. I had like an 80% turnout. And then again, like I'm sure that anyone watching this is that we had kids that completely engaged and it was really meaningful.
Yeah.
Kids just dropped off.
Yeah.
But they were always invited again. I hope that changes for the fall when we say, no, this is your learning time. You need to be here. You don't get to choose not to. And about 60 to 65% for grade 11s. That's including that I would adjust it upwards a bit with the international kids who went home. They just couldn't make it with time changes. But then again, I had a kid from Germany, a kid from Slovakia join every call. So it was really cool.
Wow, that's great. And what an interesting perspective to see them back in their country too.
Yeah, very neat. Yeah, 9-hour time changes. And it didn't work for the kids in Japan and China, but it worked for the kids in Europe and South America if they wanted to. So it was very cool. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And how about your careers students? How have you been maintaining that connection with them as the year ran down?
Well, and that one was a little different because they're used to getting my emails. So what I do in the fall is I get all the grade 12 emails as I can, as many of them. And I get their, if they choose a cell number and their preferred email and the parents. And I do a weekly sign up. And so again, what's really worked for me, I've done this for years now, but I make a bit link. So mine is bit.ly/, that's just the shortened part, and it's just OB Scholar. So that's my link. And what I do is a weekly email that I post on a Google Doc. So when I send it out, I think this is what we're grappling with is if you send an email that's got too much information, people don't read it because it's just, we're all feeling that surge of too much text. So on mine, I just say, here's a weekly update, one little note. and I make my bit link. I think I usually make about 24 or 32 font. Everything else is 12 font. And so it's like one big button. So see it, click it, move on. And it's really important. And so on my Google Doc, I start in September and I end in June on one big document. And I think this year is 140 pages. So 1 week at a time, right? But the key thing in there is that, you get too many emails, you lose them. And parents know exactly where to go. So I feel like I kind of train everyone in September, and I continue on. So it was no big deal. I just a lot of email back and forth with different kids. And I held a drop-in session, but a lot of kids didn't use it because by March, you're kind of done your schedule. Yeah. So in the fall, it can be totally different. Yeah. I'm a little nervous about how I'm going to meet that many needs because I had 450 people on that email list for Oak Bay, right? So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a big school. So of all the stuff that you've been trying in the last couple of months, and that, obviously you were doing a lot of this prior to pandemic time as well, but are there any new strategies or ways of communicating or working that you think you'll kind of continue on with, even if we're back to normal face-to-face instruction in September?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at Oak Bay, and we've talked about this as a department, is that we need to really reserve class time for discussion time and connecting with kids, even if we're at, let's say 50% of kids or 40 or whatever it's going to be. And then the delivery, the backbone or the content needs to still be on Google Classroom and the docs and to break it down into chunks, right? That's what I heard kids say is that what they appreciated about some of our approaches was we did one assignment a week versus some people, I think that in the sciences, maybe it's like little chunks and it was formative assessments. And then a summative assessment. And it was hard to keep up. So when you go on your Google Classroom, it literally looks like a mega stream of too much info and you can't find it. So my recommendations again are what I'll choose to do too is really label your categories in your classroom clearly. So when you're in geography, label it clearly so a kid can sort geography and just find that one assignment. I really like Kate Baker's idea of using materials and repinning it to the top. And what we're going to incorporate now is that weekly plan, right? So on Monday to Friday, here's the plan of the week, right? So kids go, I don't know what to work on this week. And it's yeah, you do. On Monday, I want you to read this section, like maybe section 1 of the Anthropocene thing I did before. And then section 2 would be Wednesday, and section 3 is Friday. And break it down into really manageable chunks is very, 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 very helpful. So yeah, and I think I want to try using more of the Google Classroom for them. And sorry, I meant Google Calendar, because in the calendar, they can start adapting it. You can, of course, sync it with your phone, right?
Right.
So I'm still in the two worlds. Like I use iCal for my stuff, and I turn off all the other areas that I don't need to look at. But with kids, I'm trying to figure out what the best way of that one is. So yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is functional and scales very nicely on their mobile platforms too. So. Yeah.
Can I give you one more tip that I think is really
important? That was going to be my next question. Do you have any tips to share?
I actually use a thing called Screencastify or Amazing Screenshot, and they're Google extensions. They're great. And I actually made a video for one of my colleagues saying, I'm getting so many Google emails because people don't know how to turn it off. And I think we're still screen sharing. This one's really, really helpful. Is when you go down to settings. So what I did is I clicked on my classes. You're in the big one. And on the stack on the left side, I'm going down to settings. And then you go to email notifications, and it's going to be on. But if you're not used to this, they're all going to be toggled on. And you don't want to do that. So what I do only is I have private comments on work. If kids give me a private comment, and the kids are using this, right? They don't go to email. They'll use your Google platform to send it to you. And I only turn on resubmissions of work. This is my choice. So what I always tell kids is like, I will not find you in all these classes with all these digital things. So you unsubmit your work if you want to redo it. You resubmit it, and I get an email notification. And it's worked really great. So if I'm in someone else's class, because that's the other great thing too, right? If you're co-teaching with somebody. Yeah. So for example, I was in Keith Butler's History 12 class, and we just cross-shared everything. It was fantastic. And I will take his History 12 class, but I don't want anything that he's sending his class. I just turn it off. And so what happens now is you've gone from a crazy amount of email to not very, very little. And then it shows up. And the other thing I then do is using my Gmail for the Learn account, I just forward it to my SD61 account. So I'm only checking one email. And when it comes in, of course it comes in, I use the Mac mail program, and it just works brilliantly because it just pops up. I see that John Hamlin's resubmitted something. I'll get to when I get to it. I won't forget. and I'm only dealing with a trickle down, nice little triage. So that's helpful because a lot of our staff didn't know you could do all this stuff.
And good workflow trick there, because it can be a real inundation of notifications.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other trick too is that I'm learning the scholarship in post-secondary. I encourage kids to enroll in it. So when I did our district authority awards, I said, I'm not taking any emails this year. I'm only doing it through Classroom. It was fantastic because every 57 kids submitted all their documents in one place. And all I had to do is when I had my staff or my departments, because there's several people in there, I just added them all as teachers. You can see them all at the very top here. I just added all of them on the bottom and they just went and looked at them. So that was great. So again, it streamlined a process that I didn't have to now bring all those emails together, decide what's important and where to ferry them off. And I couldn't recommend that more. That was a new thing this year. I did.
That's probably something you'll keep indefinitely, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we did all our dual credit signups that way. We had 95 kids do dual credit paperwork through Classroom.
Wow.
Right? And so actually 103 now. So there's my dual credit class. And so I just shared this with my Career Center coordinator. Only her and I have it. It's all in one place. It's so brilliant, right? I'm not doing any of the grade book, of course. I'm not returning assignments. I'm using it as a delivery system.
Yeah.
So it's not really what Classroom is, but it works brilliant for me.
A creative interpretation of its use.
It works. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. And any closing thoughts or any other things you'd like to mention before we sign off?
I just think that we have to be kind to ourselves when we have our own expectations. And again, my wife and I, she's also a teacher in the district, as I said, we just said, we have to remember that we can only do 3 or 4 things really well. Don't do 10 things. Don't do them half well, right? So decide, why are you doing the technology? If it replaces something else that is more work, like paper might work better, then maybe it's not for you. But if this can streamline it and you reuse it again and again, then you really need to think about that one and take 3 things that work really well. Like, for example, I said I would have new assignments with fresh material. I'm not doing worksheets. I never do them. And I want kids to explore and think. I want kids to be able to meet me on virtually, which worked really well. And I want to be able to communicate with families. And so that was my 3 things. And of course, content can change. So that's fine. The other thing I would say also, one great tip is for anyone, if they're new to Google Classroom, archive your classes. Do not ever delete your class, because don't worry, Google's got the memory space, and then you can go back and reuse your assignments, right? So you want to see where you went, like, what did I do in September? I forget. Well, it's right on your assignment. And all your documents are linked there. So just archive them. And then when you go to, when I go back here and I just do an assignment for socials, I go to classwork, I go to create, I'm just reusing a post. And I can pick anything now of all my classes I've taught in Google Classroom. I started early. I was the first on the bandwagon in 2015. So I can go back and find anything, and it archives, and just leave that file in your drive alone. Don't touch it, but archive your classes. Don't delete them. I did that before. Wow, mistake. So I've learned from my mistakes.
Awesome.
Yeah, there you go. That's it for me.
I really appreciate it, Scott. Thanks so much. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Okay, you too. See you, John.